Hi, I'm Jeremy Miller. I am the founder of Sticky Branding, and I'm a strategy coach. I work with companies around the world to help them grow their businesses and brands to the next level. And I've had the pleasure over the last several months to be working with you and the U-Pak team on your strategy, where the business is going. And one of the key things that we've been focusing on are those core values. What makes you, you? And over the course of 50 years, those values are so entrenched in the business and in the team, but we hadn't documented them, we hadn't codified them. And so we are rolling out these 5 new values out to the entire organization. And the point of this workshop, the point of this video has been the first step in unpacking and discovering what these values represent. We share the stories of the benefits they have, where U-Pak has been at the best, and then how do we use them in our day-to-day work and management skills. So I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you enjoy the learning that comes out of it, because what we need you to do is to take these ideas and run with them. If we can reinforce those values and share these stories every day, we're going to create something even better. The U-Pak is starting from such great strength, but now we're building it out and reinforcing it, because this is the way we want to run this company going forward.
So today we're going to talk about our 5 core values. That's really what today's about. And these core values have, again, what's led us to where we are today. And we want to just drive home these things and what they mean and why they're so important to all of us. And our decision-making process every day involves, if you have a decision to make and you look at our core values, if you stay on that guideline, we always seem to make the right decisions and move forward. So the first one is innovate, which is the courage to do it better. The second is respect. Treat others as you expect to be treated. Loyalty. Develop and grow relationships with trust. And commitment, your word matters. And finally, sustainability. Make the future better. Sustainability is kind of one of those funny words that gets overused right now, but it's politicians talk about carbon footprint and we're going to make things better in 2050 and all that, but sustainability is every day, and just make tomorrow better. And if we just do a little bit every day and move on to tomorrow, everything seems to work out. So we're going to break out into a couple of groups. We're going to talk about some of the good things U-Pak have done over the years, some of the bad things we've done, why do we do bad things, how do we make it better and move forward, and go from there.
Your values. We're going to go on to these again and again and again, but I want to just take a moment before we get into the exercise just to look at each one of them and just ask the group, what does this represent for you? So we started with innovation, the courage to do it better. When you see this, what does that mean for you? What makes U-Pak remarkable when I look at you from the outside looking in is the decisions that you have made along the way to go from waste management to zero waste, to make the investments in Emerald and the choices that are going on. These are challenging the giants of the industry. When Waste Management and GFL are going on this path, you are diverging and redefining what is the best way to approach these things. So this is in who you are. How about respect? Treat others as you expect to be treated. Seems like something that our parents taught us. Anyone? What's this represent for you? Loyalty. Develop and grow relationships with trust. We grow relationships that are mutually beneficial through trust, commitment, and investing in each other. What's this one mean? Commitment. Your word matters. You see there's a pattern. These things link together. We do what we say we'll do. Don't make other people's problems other people's problems. And it's a guiding principles. Just what you said there as well. Oops, sure. Anyone want to add more to this? What does commitment mean? This one might be the hardest. Sustainability, making the future better. This is playing to zero waste is the future, but also supporting our communities to make them better. What does sustainability mean for you? When you see these words on the page, what does it speak to you in your knowledge of U-Pak and your experiences here? So let me ask you a question. We've just just scratching the surface. We're going to go deep today. Do these feel natural? Do they feel like what you know is U-Pak? Is this, do they feel awkward? Do they feel natural? We can flip back and you look at all these different examples and you can look at different values in different businesses. And again, it always starts out at that words on a page. Somebody coming in looking on externally goes, okay, those are nice. But until you breathe life into them, until you live them, until you experience them, they don't have that. And the neat thing is they're a little like an empty vessel. The more we pour into them, more experiences, the more we use them, the stronger they get. And I'll just share two quotes. One is Stanley McChrystal. He was a former four-star general for the US Army leading the special forces in Iraq. And he said the key mark is when you start hearing your employees repeat back the things that you've been harping on as if they came up with it on their own. So the more you say it and someone starts repeating it back to you, you know you've done it. So you sound like a broken record for a year, and then all of a sudden you start hearing what you wanted to hear. And that's a great sign. The other goes from Dale Carnegie, and he said, take my factories, take my equipment, but leave the people, we'll come back stronger. And that's also within U-Pak as too. It's in the people, not in the plants, not in the equipment. It's what we do as a team that makes us special. And that's why I want to breathe life into these words. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up into, we're going to do 3 exercises this morning. First exercise is going to really be on 2 parts. So we're going to break up into groups of 5, 1 per value basically. And we're going to look at the light and the dark side of these values. So where were we at our best? Let's, just as we're doing now, but go deeper. Share stories with your team of where was U-Pak at its best? What are stories that truly represent this value? And we're going to capture so each group will get its own, and we'll capture one of the best stories and we'll share that with the room. Again, this is shared experiences. We're learning through each other, and because not all of us know each other and we don't all know each other's divisions, we're going to have that mixture to be able to pull those stories out because there is a common language, but having stories is really helpful. I also want to look at the dark side. Think of that ignore your value, crash your brand statement. It's not like you've made terrible mistakes, but there are moments where we didn't operate at our best or we did deviate away. So what is examples where we might have ignored our values, and what do we learn from them? So we'll collect 2 sides of those stories. Second exercise we're going to do is I'm going to introduce a tool, and we'll give you a digital version of it afterwards. But we're going to use a people analyzer. So we're going to actually look at your team and say, how are they scoring in terms of representing and holding our values? And we'll talk about why that's important. So this is a very useful management tool to do on an annualized basis. But again, let's look at this in context. And then the third exercise we're going to do is, how do we roll this out? We're going to take some time to say, okay, this is a journey. This is day 1. So the employees experience the video at Wonderland. We're getting together for the first time as a management team to say, this is what this means to us. But then what are we going to do for the next 90 days? So what are some of the deliberate action items we can take as a team to start living and rolling this out? And so we're going to do an exercise with some Post-it notes and voting on some actions so that we can walk out of this morning with some deliberate next steps. In your group, share some examples of where U-Pak was at its best living that value. So if you're in group 3, loyalty. Where are examples where you saw in your job, your team, or the company itself really represent loyalty? Take a few minutes, share a few different examples and stories with your team, and then I'll give you a warning to capture the best one of the group, the one that's most representative, and we'll go through an exercise to share all of those with the team. So when was U-Pak at its best, representing the value that is your number? Make sense? All right, let's put, I'm gonna put 8 minutes on the clock. Go.
And I see that where they're committed to their word is that we'll be there, we'll pick it up, and that needs to happen.
The integrity and the support of the company. We don't have a lot of false disposal with U-Pak, but the integrity, the support, the word is always follow through 100%.
Courage to say, hey, we can make it better.
Yeah.
Right?
To
So
change
it's
the
about
status quo.
making it
That takes
better
courage.
from the status quo.
So this has been great in terms of a conversation, but let's take this to the next step of the exercise. So everyone's got a flip chart here. What I'd like you to do is just write down a couple bullet points. What was one story, what was one example that was representative of the value that you would like to share with the broader group? So we've just spent a bunch of time brainstorming and sharing stories. Now let's take one from your table to share with the group. So let's take 2 to 3 minutes to pick one, and then we'll come back and go around the room to share them with everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we couldn't get it.
So they had these electric pumps that supposed to drop hoses down to the tank.
Here's the part of this that I haven't asked that I'm going to take on. Part of the challenge that we're going to face as leaders, managers, is we've got another corporate thing. Oh, look, we got a piece of paper and stuff on them. And it's easy to brush them off and ignore them. And the other side of it is words on a page, innovation, sustainability. What does that look like? There's 2 types of words. There's abstract words and concrete words. An abstract word is innovation, sustainability, best in class, those types of things. A concrete word is you can picture it in your mind. When somebody says to you, what is a black hole? You know it's that region of space that sucks everything into it. It's black and it's a hole. But before that, it was called a totally collapsed gravitational object. If you think of really descriptive words, there's a picture in your mind. And the thing is, the word sustainability is completely forgettable because you can't anchor it on anything. You don't know what that means. You don't have a feeling, you don't have a mental image, there's nothing on it. But it's the stories that we're talking about right now are going to be the tool and the process by which you educate your teams and live your values. When you listen to great coaches, they're repeating the same stories again and again and again. So here's my ask for you. As you're listening to these stories, as you've been sharing these stories, can you capture 1 or 2 of them and practice sharing them with your team over the next couple of weeks? Is that something you can do? Is that something you want to do? So I don't care saying to somebody, respect, treat others, like, who cares? But if you can tell an example of when that happened, when that, just as the story of we support our accounts better than others. One of the stories that Brian told me early on was a story of a negotiation between your dad and another partner and signing a contract on the back of a KFC lid. What did the term say?
If you have a problem, call me. If I have a problem, I'll call you. It's a pretty elaborate contract. By the way, that was done in 1983.
Yeah.
We still do business on the same terms today.
Isn't that amazing? But see, that is just a vast story. It's very iterative, and you can use that as a teachable moment. You can repeat that ongoing. And these are the tools that we need to basically, especially with your new employees, people that are new to the team, that haven't been indoctrinated, stories get you there. So if you got something that stands out, write a note to it, practice it. The first few times you tell a story, it's awful. I can tell you this from a speaking perspective. Delivering a keynote for the first time, it's like going back to like grade 2 and speaking in front of the class. It's horrible. What makes a great story is the muscle memory, telling that same thing over and over again. It's like a joke. The more times you tell it, the more natural it becomes, and then you start repeating it. So this is my ask today, is just be pulling out these moments here. Okay. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Anyone else want to add to what's going on right now? Let's do the other side of this. Now, instead of doing the same value again, we're going to rotate. So we're going to do +1. So table 1 will become doing 2. 5 will become 1. So everyone just shift forward 1. We're going to do the opposite side of this exercise. We're going to do it a little bit faster this time. 1, I don't want to dwell on the negative, but I do want to just take that moment to say, where was the dark side in this? When did we screw up? When did we break our values and feel it? And that could be things that you've observed. It could be the way you've interacted with another team member. It happens all the time. So we're going to compress this. We'll do it in 10 minutes. I'm going to give a 5-minute warning at the middle. So share the stories at the beginning, and then take the second half to document it. So the point of a lot of these storytelling and looking at what we're doing this stuff, and then we'll go look at some of the more technical stuff, is really having that short circuit to be able to repeat stories. You take the KFC lid example. In 20 seconds, you can convey so much of what U-Pak's values are, what these represent. If you have a problem, call me. If I have a problem, call you. Don't make our problems our customers' problems. Let's get on with it, respect each other, trust, loyalty. And then sustainability is one of these interesting ones. It's caught up on zero waste in many respects, but as we talk about it, as we breathe life into it, sustainability is so much more. This is a 50-year-old business. It's a growing business. It is a transformative business. And it's not making decisions like bet the farm, get sold to private equity, and be shredded apart. We're making choices for another 50 years. So sustainability has a lot more meaning into it than just zero waste. So we will continue to breathe life into it.
At Trackside, they had the same situation when an employee, maintenance manager, Mike, decided to leave and took with him 25 years worth of experience and had 2 weeks to train the new guy. So that was, when we talk about sustainability of the company, ensuring that we have proper succession planning, training, development programs in place is important.
So at U-Pak, when I first started 9 years ago, there wasn't really a commitment to training. We had a lot of mechanical issues with the trucks. Things have changed a lot in the last 15 years with the trucks. It's all computerized. We got 5-body computers, we got ECMs and so on. And the guys that we had working on the vehicles in the maintenance department didn't have any understanding of it. So we were chasing trucks all the time. Trucks were breaking down. It was frustrating dispatch, frustrating sales. So we finally, in the last few years, we made a commitment to training, and we have a very good relationship with one of our vendors, Metro Freightliner, who don't normally offer us any training other than if you're part of a dealership. But we're getting that now. We're getting that training. We're getting an understanding. We're getting a lot of the younger guys coming in to be able to keep these trucks on the road.
And the other thing that we talked about was the investment in new equipment. So the example was a baler at McPherson, and it was a baler that we just lived with all the service failures and fixing it and repairing it every day. And then finally it was replaced and put in a new baler, and then everybody didn't realize how good life could be with a piece of equipment that worked continuously. And so that's the idea of not being afraid to invest in new technology and new procedures to make the business a much more steady and predictable operation.
We have all these relationships that are intertangled, and whether it's between companies or between our suppliers, there's many examples where the dark side comes out and we just forget that we have to nurture a relationship rather than just expect it to be there. And the biggest part is to nurture on a continual basis and grow it so that when you have a weak moment, you can recover from it.
Probably a little bit more current is COVID and how our relationship with people. All of a sudden, that respect might have changed a little bit based on vaccination status. For example, where you're working with people, never a problem, and all of a sudden, oh, you're not vaccinated. Oh, you are vaccinated. Like that sort of stuff. So I think our respect for people is challenged. And again, I think we got through all that just by relying on our other values. And communication is another place where I don't know if we always have respect, showing respect we have for other people, and kind of putting ourselves in their shoes. So those are times when I feel that respect isn't the most positive. We could work on that.
How do we learn together? How do we use these values in a tactical day-to-day management level? I put up this little Gaussian curve or bell curve on there. Does everyone see that okay? So if you think of the spectrum of bad to good employees, having your turds and having your superstars are very easy to identify. If somebody's terrible, you know that, you make a decision, you know. Same thing on your studs, they're amazing, they're rock stars, easy to identify. The problem here, especially for me as a manager, has been in this, let's call it that BC profile, where you've got a person that said sometimes it causes you grief, and then they kind of have that glimmer of hope, and you buy a little bit more time, and then they fall back down, and you're in that problem area. Has everyone experienced that? And they suck so much energy. It's brutal. the challenge is somebody who is on this side is great. It's in this area and then these gaps that start to become your problem areas. So how do you navigate that? And this is what this exercise is really to help focus on, is when you've got an employee or you've got a team member that seems to be in that off space. Why? So I look at this as two parts. The first one is, does the individual have the skills and capabilities to achieve objectives? So are they, as a salesperson, do they have the right sales talent? Do they have the right prospecting tools? Do they have the right list, the right what? And the same thing as a mechanic or anybody else. You can look at this first step in the chart, meeting expectations, yes, no, maybe. If they're maybe or no, I want to know, does the person need training? Do they need systems? And that's a straightforward type of question. The other side though, and on those two sides of capabilities, that's a solvable problem. But the challenge then goes to the values. If somebody has the right values but isn't meeting expectations, you could have a great employee, they're just in the wrong seat. So we either need to train them, we need to put them into a different role, something along those lines. But if they don't have the right values, if it's all negatives across the board, they may not be savable. They may not be a U-Pak person. They could be a great employee, but they're just in the wrong culture, what this represents, they don't have. So there's two extremes. There's, and the more insidious one is what is called the brilliant jerk, where you've got a superstar guy who just crushes it. You all know the archetypal sales guy who's just an asshole. Like, those are the people that tear you down. You can have brilliant engineers, brilliant technicians, and others who are all negative on the values, and they tear down the team around it. They're very cancerous, but they get protected by management because of their performance and results or who they are. So this is where these values start coming in of, if the person's lacking the values, can you recover them? And that's a hard question. It's an emotional question too. Everything we're talking about here is really hard. Like, it's great. This is why I say we started out today going, these are words on a page, but we're now talking about the real life stories where it gets into that realm of difficult choices. And to your point, hiring right now is a game of compromise, where there's not enough talent, keeping them, all of what's going on. Now, I think by next year it will soften and be in a better place. But right now, it's a hot mess. And so the more we stay true to what going back just to the values, this is your tool. It's not perfect. It doesn't solve every problem, but it allows you to create awareness. And so simply by going to take this example of, I have an individual who has a problem that I now need to deal with. I might not have an answer for the next 30, 60, 90 days, but it's on the page. You can now problem solve and bring that forward to your team to work on. And what this is really doing is it's a common language. It allows us to diagnose, not necessarily solve the problem, but it allows you to diagnose so that you can solve the problem. That's the other part of this leadership challenge, is the business is getting more complex. And as it grows, you imagine if we doubled the number of employees over the next 10 years and doubled the room in terms of management, and we have all these new young people coming on board who don't know the history of the family and where you've come from 50 years ago. This is your job to continue to push it down and to create the bonds now so that we keep living this. Questions, thoughts, comments? I don't want to leave this one on a negative tone. It is a heavier one.
I have a thought.
Please.
I don't think this is negative. I mean, at the beginning, we heard a lot of positive things about the company.
Yeah.
And as David said, modeling this when we're looking to get new hires, you would think they would want to join us.
Yeah.
That lineup, like you said, maybe in a year from now, that lineup will be there. But us as a company just has to keep modeling that.
Yeah.
And I think that's positive.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's exciting. There's so much greatness in your stories. They just keep telling them, like when in an interview, like again, a great place to practice these stories of where you're at your best is when you're telling a new job applicant of what does it mean to work at U-Pak? Why do you do what you do? when you're at a barbecue this summer and someone asks about the company, these are the stories that people care about. They don't care that you happen to turn energy from waste and zero waste. Like, yes, as the marketing guy here, that's the stuff that I want to build the brand around. But the human side, these values, is actually what makes you interesting. We're going to do a little exercise with Post-it notes. We're going to do some arts and crafts here. And the arts and crafts goes this way. What we're looking for is, how do we take everything we've talked about today and start to introduce this to our teams? This not to solve the problems for the next 10 years, it's the next 90 days. So what I'd like you to do is come up with 3 ideas or 3 ways that we can educate U-Pak's employees around these 5 values. It could be the storytelling exercise, it could be the posters. We've already done some level of introduction. What can we do in the next 90 days to get everybody aware and buying into it? What you're going to do is I'll have Post-it notes and Sharpies. You're going to write 1 idea per Post-it. When you've got 3, we're going to come up over here. First person comes up. We'll do like this. If you have an idea that has already been written, put it below. If it's a new idea that's not up here, put it beside. At the end of it, we're going to have a whole lot of Post-it notes on this wall. The point of this exercise is, what are we going to do? I don't believe we should leave this room without some concrete action items that we can execute in the next 90 days. Do you agree with that? You want to do this? Okay. Lots of cheering. Kathleen has volunteered, or I've voluntold, thank you. She has demonstrated not only Vanna White skills, but just exceptional organizational skills in...
She's too young. She doesn't know who Vanna White is. She's like,
Here's what I'd like your help with, Kathleen. Yeah. So we can see there's trends. We didn't come up with just 150. We're not going across the room here and stuff. There's a few key ones where there's a lot of Post-it notice ideas. Those are the ones we're going to gravitate first. So what did you see as the trends? Can you help us navigate this?
So a couple of the trends I saw noticed were a lot of posters, pictures, having the values placed everywhere around the workplace and stuff like that. Company emails, just constant communication coming out. Lots of training sessions, monthly meetings, team discussions, kind of inter-department meetings, kind of going along those lines, and to just re-educate and reiterate the values. We are clearly a fan of food. Lots of team lunches, fun events, barbecues, and I know Wayne did say we have a barbecue coming up, so
July 13th.
July 13th, there you go. And then another one, which still carrying strong, is lead by example. So always, pretty much connects every core value we have. Model your values, really walk the talk.
If you think of charitable activities right now, the most compelling charities and fundraising groups are very much involved around small acts of participation, like Habitat for Humanity. It's not that you're writing a check, you're going and building a house, and that's a memory and it's an experience. And this really is the idea of values. Is the values we have to take is from words on a page and repeating innovate a million times. Nobody cares. How can we live it, experience it, and do it as a team? Because if you think of what the 5 values do, is it's really about coalescing yourself as a group. It's your social contract, it's your team. So if we were to take the first one here, we've got July 13th as a team event. This is on the calendar, it's coming up in 30 days roughly. Is there something specifically we can do to reinforce the values more than the video? We've already done the video, we've already said it. What can we do at that event?
Wayne is gonna make a cheer. With pom-poms.
A pom-pom cheer?
We got a lot going on there, you know that. Posters, cheers, drinks, and you guys like food.
So you have signature drinks with each value? Signature shots?
A quick question. I mean,
Yeah.
this is part of what, you know, we've been talking about where it's a little bit of disengagement between the different companies. And so we're talking about a barbecue, but it's only at one location.
Okay.
You know, and how do we get everyone involved when it's barbecue? Clearly, like, you know, we have 2 people here from Pickering, and they won't be going across the city to go to that barbecue.
Right.
Well, she's
You know,
still
we
not
talked
sick.
about.
I'm sick that day.
Okay, you are on my list here, by the way. So loyalty became a minus. But those are like types of things that, you know, communication, how do we bring everybody together for something like that?
Here's the key part to this, and this is where we have to push ourselves slightly. So when you're putting this together, Wayne, can we carve out an activity, a time where you reinforce the values? It could be the simple exercise of telling a story. It could be like we did, taking a moment to share stories of where you're at your best. It could be something else, but it's going to be taking those moments to take it more from a social event to there is some purpose behind it. Doesn't have to be a lot of time. It can be like Wonderland and having the short little lunch event type of speaking. But if we're not conscientious of our rollout, it goes like this. We have that, and it goes on. It's just another thing management did. So if we just carve out the time and do it, it has additive effects. And I think if we can get that template, and we're not going to answer all that today, they just capture the idea and then we'll figure it out. If we can get that template, we can say, if someone did something really great at, say, Tidemore, we can take it to the rest of the facilities and repeat it. And then again, it's that collective learning. I want to come back to something as individuals. So there's 2 here, training sessions, department meetings, and leading by example. This is going to be down at an individual level. What is something that you can do, whether that, and maybe it's with multiple managers within a facility, but what could be an activity that we do over the next 6 weeks in June and July, or that you could do specifically to lead by example? I'll have one suggestion, but I'd like to hear what you say. A lot of awkward silence.
I don't understand, but you say what we could do to
As managers, with your team, your department, your staff, a team session, a training session, a departmental meeting. Okay. We're getting called out already. What are you going to do? Let's say at the end of the day, what are you going to do? I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask for a report back. What did the managers do 6 weeks from now to deliberately roll this out with their teams? So here would be the 2 ways I would frame this if we were going to measure it and we wanted to track it. The first one would be to select a story and count how many times you told that story a week for 4 weeks. So the repetition, repeating the same thing, getting used to telling a values-based story, and we track that as a basic KPI. The other would be, say, a team lunch and learn, to have a values conversation over a lunch hour with your team. If every manager, every department did one of those, not a big rollout like say the facility tours, just a team thing that you're doing with your group, again, we could report on that and say, we checked that box and did it, and then we can put a quality element to what did we learn, what worked, what didn't work, what would we do next. All right, I got 5 suggestions here in terms of big and little. Do you agree with them? Can everyone read that? It would be my first question, or I can repeat it. So number 1, poster sign rollout. Mark's got it underway. You're going to be seeing the posters, the stickers, all of that go out. Visibility will be there. Number 2, we got the team assessment tool. We'll roll that out as well. We've got the July 13 Wayne's World event with the facility tour. Number 4 is I'm going to encourage one lunch and learn or team type event just with you and your group over the next 6 weeks, so by the end of July, and sharing one story per week, getting in the practice of retelling the value stories, doing it at least once a week, if not more, and getting in that habit to set a personal goal to tell a story or tell that analogy over and over. And the goal is you want to sound like an asshat broken record, and you want to be sick of hearing yourself say the same things over and over again. But then when you start hearing people repeat it back to you, you know you got it. I want to close on 2 things. So the first one is just a couple as a quote. So there's a really interesting car dealership out in Fredericton, New Brunswick. It's second-generation family dealership called Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals. And they have this really dynamic brand, but Jim has this amazing philosophy. It's actually annoying in a way, but it's amazing in that he says, I assume my staff forget the brand every Friday and have to reteach it every Monday. So Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals is known as Canada's huggable car dealership. And so when you walk in this place, you're getting a hug. I went to Fredericton and I was profiling the company, and the first thing he did at the airport is give me a big hug. And coming from Toronto, it's like, what space? Wasn't comfortable with that. But you start to get into it because they're so into it. But the first thing that drops is the hug. It's the things that make them different. And what Jim says, and I think this is so brilliant, he says, if I forget to reinforce the value for 1 week, it costs me 2. If I forget to do it 2, it costs me 4. It compounds. So he goes into the philosophy that we have to reteach what we do every single Monday, taking the assumption that everything is lost weekly. And it's an ongoing process. It's a journey. But it goes back down to this simple technical exercise. It's about creating a great place to work with people who are engaged, doing their jobs, serving your customers well, and having it just documented. This is just your compass, where these are it's the shore of the beach, using the map. It's the thing that you want to use to navigate around because you make good choices. So as we break, I'd just like to take the last 2 or 3 minutes to say, what did you take away from this morning, these exercises, these conversations? What stands out for you in terms of what you took away? You got one?
Yeah, it's kind of the beginnings of a roadmap to help everyone come together and work sustainably.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
I think it's a great reminder that we're all on the same team. We're all working towards the same goal. So sometimes the day-to-days you get boggled up by the rude emails or whatever, and you're department against department, but at the end of the day, we're all working towards the exact same thing with the same cause.
Wonderful.
I took away that we're probably closer to where we want to be than we thought we might be. As you talk to different people around the room, you kind of talking the same thing, and it's comforting to know, yeah, everybody does understand it, and so we will get to where we're going because we're already on that road. We're just looking around to see if we're all doing it together.
It's always there.
I think it's daily work too. Like, it's not something that you say we come here today and we put it on a piece of paper. We have to live this every day if we want to do it.
Yeah.
Deals and Deals guy does it every week, so
Yeah.
we have to do it every day.
Do you need a hug?
They hug the customers in service.
Mark is going to give you a hug.
So,
I think that where it feels like being probably the newest guy in the room, it feels like we're kind of at a pivotal point where for us to grow more, it's important for us to tap into all of the knowledge that's in the room in terms of who we are, how we are, and present that out to everyone new coming along. Because as we grow, there's more and more people, and the information's here. How do we get it out? How do we talk about it? How do we get that into the new people? So somebody starting a month in, gets the crash course in who we are.
Any other final thoughts? Any other questions? Yeah.
I just had a thought. When I look at what the company's doing from a family perspective to bring everybody together into these meetings, I see the commitment that they're all in it, right? And I see the people that are around here, new supervisor especially, that when you look at this, it can only bring you closer to what the values are in this family.
So let me take 2 minutes, and then I'm going to, Brian, I'll let you do final thoughts. Is if you look at this sheet, this is a good example of what the moving parts of a strategy, things like mission, vision, values, purpose, they come across as nebulous ideas. But if you think of this vision in 10 years, where are we headed? If you look at U-Pak, and what I see is just one of the most exciting transformational companies. What you are doing in zero waste, what you are doing in Emerald in terms of being the only provider in Ontario that can offer energy from waste. That is the future. If you go, I talk to people in Switzerland, we have clients in Europe, and that's normal for them. They wouldn't think of landfill. It doesn't come on their radar. Here, it is still something new. But if we look at the transition around environmentalism, we look at the transition of sustainability, you are creating what is the future, but you also are the only ones doing it. Zero waste is an incredible purpose, and what that can be over the next decade is transformational. Your ship, you can configure a business into many different ways and how it looks and how it operates. You are building this engine, this boat that fits you. So the question that you think of in strategy is, how do we get to where we want to go? What is the people, the systems, the infrastructure, the talent that gets us there? And that's what a strategic plan is. If we know what the destination is, then it's the steps that take us there. But along the way, we have disruptions. We have things like the rising interest rates and COVID and all those things that test us. And it's in those moments that your values become so important. Growth is change, disruptions are change, and change is what puts people into compromising places. But the values give you that way to deal with it, to make the right choices. And what's so encouraging working with U-Pak and seeing the conversations today is how connected you are there. This isn't foreign. I'm not selling you on it. These are your stories. So I walk away very excited. And my hope is that we take these steps to roll it out every single day, every single week to communicate it, because it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the break. It's less about the OGs and the originals and people who've been here for 20 years. You know it, you live it. What we're really doing is the next hire, the next person, the newest member of the team. Adam needs a lot of it, is teaching this whole new set of values. I say that flippantly. But it's reinforcing, so this gives you that codified language to move forward on that. So I really appreciate it. Brian, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with the group to wrap this up?
Well, I want to thank everyone, first of all, for coming today. We all had a good excuse not to be here today. There was something going on, but it's really the values that we all already have is what got us here today. And we have to make a point of what Jeremy said, rolling this out every day. It's very important that we do it. We do it as a team. We do it together, and we all succeed together. And when I look at these values, the thing that stands out the most for me every day is when you have a decision to make, which you make several of them every day, if you run that decision through these values, we always come out with the right decision. It makes it really simple to do what we have to do all day.